The Eagles have fired their head coach, Doug Pederson. And, oh man, there's a lot to unpack here. I am nervous. It's going to be very messy. I'm going to do the best I can. There's a lot to unpack, a lot to talk about. Number one, I put in my thumbnail for the video. When the Eagles tanked after week 17, I put in the thumbnail, I hope it was worth it, when I did a video about that topic. And it feels like it wasn't worth it. It doesn't appear that getting the number 6 overall pick rather than the number 9 overall pick appears like that move was not worth it because it probably got Doug Pederson fired, among other things. Now, it does appear that there's a lot of stuff we don't know that I'm sure, unless we're Doug Pederson or the owner or the general manager, there's just things going on. Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Doug Pederson, something is going on behind the scenes, and there's some stuff going on that we just don't know and aren't privy to. There's a rumor that the coaches list from Doug Pederson, when he gave it to the GM, saying, here are the promotions I want to make, and the GM and owner were like, we hate these ideas, and Doug, you're stupid. Now, it's also been rumored that the same thing happened right before the Eagles won a Super Bowl, that Doug Pederson said, hey, I want to stick with the offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, and they said, that's terrible, and Doug Pederson pushed back and said, no, we got to keep Frank Reich. And now they won a Super Bowl the next year. Frank Reich is now the coach of the Colts and doing very well. So it appears like not necessarily is Doug Pederson always wrong when he gives his coaching hires and offers and opportunities. There's just a lot of rumors swirling around Philadelphia. Now, there clearly was a relational and emotional disconnect between the owner and the coach in Philadelphia. You know, you rarely dump a girlfriend that you like. So clearly, the owner, Doug Pederson, there wasn't a cohesive relationship there. And I don't know, no matter what you say, the owner didn't like Doug Pederson. Something was happening there behind the scenes. Now, here's what I want to know. Who's going to win the breakup? 3 years from now, who's going to be better off, Doug Pederson or Philadelphia? I'm not going to know. I'm not even going to make a prediction on that. It'll just be fun to find out. Does Doug Pederson do very well wherever he goes next? Do the Eagles do very well moving on from Doug Pederson? I don't know. There are clearly a lot of problems in Philadelphia. I think one of the biggest problems in Philadelphia is, and it's not really, a problem is a questionable thing. When the Eagles won a Super Bowl, they went all in on that roster. They spent a lot of money. They did everything they could, spent a lot of money in all veterans and all kinds of stuff, older players, and it got them to a Super Bowl, and they won the Super Bowl. So spending a lot of money paid off. The repercussions of that, though, were that they have an aging roster with players that are overpaid and a bunch of problems with the salary cap. So they spent their money. They went all in, and they won a Super Bowl. It worked out for them, but they're still dealing with the repercussions of their Super Bowl victory in Philadelphia. I think it's worth it. Hey, I'll trade all kinds of bad years for a Super Bowl win if I was a fan of any team. I don't have a favorite team, but if I was a Browns fan or something, I'd say, we can ruin our franchise for another 20 years if it means we win a Super Bowl. That's a bit hyperbolic and extreme, but you know what I mean. Now, there are a couple places in sports that I would not want to work, that I would not want to be affiliated with. Now, sports radio is one thing. I think sports radio in Philadelphia, it'd be amazing because there's a lot of anger. I think the anger in Philadelphia is probably 10 times as much as in New York, although New York's another dream market of mine. I'm probably never going to do local sports radio because I'm already a national show. I've gotten beyond that, but man, there would be a fun thing to do, like local radio in New York. Can you imagine how really? But Philadelphia is what I want to focus on. There's a couple places in sports I wouldn't want to be. University of Auburn. You play Alabama once a year. You play Alabama every year. It's a rivalry game. I think at Auburn, there's a lot of unrealistic expectations and angry boosters. I would say the exact same thing about Texas, the University of Texas in Austin. And then the city of Philadelphia is a place that I would call and I'm going to make a lot of people mad on Philadelphia. I believe Philadelphia is a city with a toxic sports culture where there's no patience at all from the fan base, from ownership. There's unrealistic expectations. There's a ton of hate and anger like crazy. And again, it's 10 times worse than New York, in my opinion. Philadelphia fans than New York. Like New York fans are angry, but what's underlying is there's a layer of passion. Like they're angry, but they love it and they're very into it. And Philadelphia, they love their team, but they love to hate on their team. They love to hate on a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a video out there of they threw, what was it? They threw stuff at Santa Claus one time. I was talking to my dad about that last night. He's like, you realize how like awful? I'm like, yeah, I know. It's crazy. Philadelphia is just an angry place. And what's funny is as I say that, oh man, Philadelphia fans are going to come after me and be very angry in the comments. And all they will be doing is proving my point. So I'm going to win no matter what you do there. Let me remind you, Philadelphia dumped Andy Reid a couple of years back. And Andy Reid is very well respected throughout the NFL. Look at the AFC playoff picture right now. You have Sean McDermott, a former Andy Reid disciple. You have Andy Reid himself with the Kansas City Chiefs. You have John Harbaugh, another guy who used to coach under Andy Reid, and Kevin Stefanski with the Browns, who also, by the way, used to intern under Andy Reid. So basically, the entire AFC playoff picture right now has been shaped by Andy Reid. And look at how many coaches. It's crazy. I dare you to look up how many people coach under Andy Reid, then become successful coaches in their own right. It's absolutely unbelievable how many people have worked under Andy Reid at some point and then become a really successful NFL coach somewhere else. And it's unbelievable. So Andy Reid is I think pretty clearly a great coach, and he got dumped by Philadelphia, and he is much better off now. He's in Kansas City, won a Super Bowl last year, got Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid got dumped by Philadelphia and is way better off than Philadelphia is right now. So, okay, like you can say Philadelphia is crazy, but I think they're toxic, and I don't necessarily think that it's the place to be. Now, I've heard some speculation that people are saying, well, Philadelphia might hire the Oklahoma head coach, Lincoln Riley. Let me just be very clear. Not a chance. There is no way Lincoln Riley would leave Oklahoma to go to Philadelphia. Are you kidding me? First of all, Lincoln Riley is the king of Oklahoma. He's like the, what do you call it? The president, the king of Oklahoma. Like he runs that place. Not just the Norman, Oklahoma, where the university is. I mean the state of Oklahoma. Like he is the king of the castle there. He's got a very secure job, got a great relationship with Jordan, ton of money. He's winning. They love him. It's all good. And he's going to be there for probably 20, 30 years. I don't know why Lincoln Riley would ever leave Oklahoma, but definitely not for Philadelphia. And you got to be clear, when it was when the Cardinals were considering drafting Kyler Murray, you know they tried to have a conversation at some point with Lincoln Riley. Why would Lincoln Riley leave Oklahoma for Philadelphia when he didn't want to leave Oklahoma for Arizona? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's just no way Oklahoma's going to Philadelphia. I think it's clearly a conspiracy theory. It's silly nonsense. There's no way that ever happens. But it's worth squashing that bug now. Like, any rumor out there? No chance that's going to happen. Now, Doug Pederson wasn't just fired because he tanked. The Eagles had a bad year. They went 4-11-1. Now, part of why the Eagles were really terrible is because they had a bunch of injuries, and it's every year I feel like Philadelphia has an astronomical amount of injuries. Now, part of that, again, is because they got an aging roster, a lot of veteran players who are also all overpaid. Now, the other problem with Philadelphia this year was that their quarterback, Carson Wentz, fell apart. And now I don't buy that Doug Pederson is a bad coach. Doug Pederson, it's pretty rare. I'm sure it's happened before, but it's pretty rare that a terrible coach has won a Super Bowl. Like the guy that comes to mind is, John Gruden won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. Hasn't done a lot since then. But let's be honest, how often does a really bad coach win a Super Bowl? Not that often. And you also have to acknowledge that after winning a Super Bowl, Doug Pederson really suffered from the brain drain, meaning that their offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, he left, went to the Colts. And the quarterback coach of Philadelphia left and went to the Minnesota Vikings. So you lose your quarterback coach and your offensive coordinator. You got to rebuild that and work with your quarterback. Like Doug Pederson, I thought, overcame a lot, actually, and has done a pretty good job. You can say Doug Peterson's a terrible coach because Carson Wentz was awful. Well, if that's true, then how do you explain Jalen Hurts doing well? Somebody was coaching Jalen Hurts. And then also, let me ask you this. How many times has Doug Peterson thrown the ball in 2020 in an NFL season, an NFL game? He used to play quarterback in the NFL, that's fine, but not recently, right? When's the last time Doug Peterson? No, Carson Wentz was the person throwing balls for Carson Wentz. Doug Peterson wasn't deciding where to throw the football. Doug Peterson wasn't the one throwing interceptions. Carson Wentz, there were many, many moments where Carson Wentz threw the ball into traffic, made bad decisions, and sometimes they'd even just hold on to the ball way too long, just trying to be Superman, trying to be way too much, forcing the ball into coverage or holding on the ball for 30 seconds during a play, running around, getting hit, fumbling. That's not on Doug Pederson. Doug Pederson isn't telling Carson Wentz to hold onto the ball way too long and throw the ball into traffic and make terrible decisions. Like, that's Carson Wentz doing his own thing and being horrible at his job. So you can say that Doug Pederson's an awful coach because of Carson Wentz, but I think Carson Wentz caused his own problems. It wasn't Doug Pederson causing the problems for Carson Wentz. Again, how do you explain Jalen Hurts doing well if Doug Pederson is a terrible coach? It just makes no sense to me. And then I also got to say, I'm very nervous about Carson Wentz moving forward. His head is all messed up. They have that Nick Foles. Who decided to build a Nick Foles statue in Philadelphia? Like, you couldn't have waited 10 years. You have a starting quarterback, Carson Wentz, in Philadelphia, and you built a statue of his backup quarterback. What are you doing? You want to mess with the guy's head forever? Do that. Oh, and then he's also got Jalen Hurts behind him breathing down his neck as the backup quarterback who can play really well. I think the confidence factor is a huge problem for Carson Wentz right now. I don't know that Carson can succeed in Philadelphia anymore. I think with Nick Foles and Jalen Hurts, and you have another quarterback winning a Super Bowl with your own team, I mean, that's, man, like how many marriages survive when the wife, like if your best friend has relations with your wife, does that marriage succeed? Probably not very often. And that's got to be how Carson Wentz feels about having the other quarterback on his team win a Super Bowl with his roster and his players. So ever since that moment with Nick Foles, I think Carson Wentz has been shaken a little bit. Then you got Jalen Hurts coming in, doing well again, in fact, better than Carson Wentz did with his own team. So I think the best thing for Carson Wentz is to get him out of Philadelphia, give him a fresh start, put him somewhere else. I think hopefully return him to Frank Reich, who can play with the Colts. And I think Frank Reich and Nick Foles, that too, but Frank Reich and Carson Wentz clearly are a matchup that are a match together that can do very, very well. So I'm really curious. Moving forward, I got to say this about the Eagles. I'm curious who they hire as their head coach. We'll see if that guy's any good. We'll see if that head coach for Philadelphia does well moving forward. It's certainly not going to be Lincoln Riley. I would be so shocked if Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma for Philadelphia. It's a rumor. It's ridiculous. And then which quarterback does Philadelphia choose? Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts? Or does Philadelphia make the mistake of choosing both? Because I don't know how you can possibly have both Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz on the same team and expect that to be a good thing. No way. No way that you can't. Because what's going to happen is you're going to stick with Carson Wentz maybe for a little bit. You keep Jalen because he's cheap. It doesn't make sense to trade him if you commit to Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz will struggle. Then mid-season next year, you'll go back to Jalen Hurts and you have a whole new nightmare. And then by that point, you can't even trade Carson away because he's had 2 years in a row with bad play and got benched twice in a row, 2 years in a row. So I think the best move for Philadelphia, get rid of Carson, commit to Jalen. He's cheaper. He's got a spark. He's really good. But it also depends on what coach they hire. Like what quarterback does the new coach want? And then are they going to hire a coach to fix Carson, or are they going to hire a coach to build around Carson, or hire a coach to work with Jalen Hurts? Like, there's a lot of questions right now in Philadelphia, and it really all centers around their quarterback situation and their coach situation. I maintain, I think Carson's confidence and his head is all rattled and shaken up. I don't recommend keeping him in Philadelphia. I don't know that he can succeed in Philadelphia. I can't believe I even said that relations with the wife thing, but I stand by that. Like, you watch another guy win with your team, and not only once, but twice. That's not good. It can't feel good at all. It's got to mess with your head. And then my final question about Philadelphia. Who will be better off 3 years from now? We'll do a follow-up. You got to be patient. Like, we're not going to, week 1 next year, Doug Pederson loses, Eagles win. I'm not going to make a video saying, well, see, they were right. The other team was right. Like, no. But 3 years from now, we'll do a follow-up saying, hey, remember when the Eagles fired Doug Pederson? Who won? Is Doug Pederson better off? Or are the Philadelphia Eagles better off after firing him? Who's going to win the breakup? I can't wait to find out. And keep your eye on Philadelphia. There's a lot of stuff up ahead for Philadelphia. But again, the thing I do not recommend, I cannot recommend this enough, do not keep both Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz on the same team. It's going to mess with Carson Wentz's head. And I personally would build around Jalen Hurts, move on from Carson, pay to get rid of him. I would not want the guy. I just don't think it's going to work in Philadelphia. You can't recover from what he's been through and the emotional and the head stuff he's been through. His head is all messed up. You got to get Carson out of Philadelphia.